Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Game Domain DomainCast. I am Jake,
I am Greg.
and today we are going to be talking about Epic. No, not just the word people overuse to describe their fun evening, but the company famous for games such as Unreal, Jazz Jackrabbit, Gears of War, Fortnite, and the subject of today's podcast, Paragon. Greg, tell me about the news.
Well, apparently earlier this week, or actually late last week, I'll say probably Friday, Paragon out of nowhere kind of announced to its players that they were going to be closing the servers and ending support for the game as of April 26th. Now, to back up a bit, 2 years ago, Paragon came out of closed alpha, closed beta to public purchases. For $30, you could purchase a pack to play Paragon, which is Epic's kind of answer to a third-person MOBA. And to get into that even further, a MOBA being a Dota-like game or a League of Legends game or Smite-like game, like a multiplayer battle arena, online battle arena. There's too many acronyms in this already, but um, they
What is a PC?
what is a personal computer? What is that?
Oh, all right.
But no, Paragon was coming out of its like testing phase. Epic wanted to have a third person like visually stunning MOBA that would kind of shake up the foundations of what it means to play like a online, team-based game. At this time when they came out, so this was putting us in what, like 2015, 2016. They were up against, League of Legends, Dota 2, Smite were the three big names, and they tried to make kind of a name for themselves by having really, really good looking graphics. Gameplay was a little rough, but it came out to some pretty modest success. I know I myself bought one of the packages to get into the game, played it for a while, wasn't a fan of some of the direction, but initially Epic was very good about kind of taking feedback from the players, tweaking things, and trying to kind of, again, it was very kind of close to their hearts as far as they were developing the game as they went, and it was kind of a true vision of like, here's a game that could be going in different directions, and you, the players, can help shape it. Which,
Very communal.
yeah, and it was kind of a cool idea. Like, hey, let's start out doing this. Let's just make things better as we go, and you guys can, give us feedback firsthand. I'm like, all right, I like this idea. I mean, this was not the first early access game or even like, paid beta game, but it was a cool idea, and I am was a big MOBA fan, and I wanted to support Epic. I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And over the past couple of years, played the game off and on, had some cool decisions, some not so cool decisions. I don't know, kind of a storied history of this game because it never really caught on as, I guess, as big as they were hoping. They were trying to kind of go after Smite, which was the other third-person MOBA on the market. Dota 2 and League being traditional like RTS, like Warcraft, or Starcraft based, like top down, clicking your mouse a million times a minute, all that fun stuff.
Mm.
Paragon was going more for like the third person shooter kind of, if you have to aim your shots, but, camera behind you. It was a very, pretty unique. Other than Smite, I think it was the only other third person MOBA that I knew of. But obviously, we kind of get to the foregone conclusion here. Epic decided to pull the plug on this game, which is concerning. Only
Well,
because it kind of raises the question of, we know that there's games out there that are early access that never really come out. Daisy being one of them.
oh
How
yeah.
how long ago did we play Daisy? Was that like
Uh,
4 years ago, 3 years
yeah, say
ago?
3 or 4. Yeah.
And the game is still not out. I mean, we purchased the game. I think it was $30, and 4 or 5 years later, it is still not out of beta. And again, that's the risk you take, and it's not like you're surprised by this, but these are somehow like, smaller developers, not necessarily indie, but they're not, not huge big budget companies. But Epic is backed by the Chinese gaming company Tencent the past couple of years, and if Epic can't even really maintain or like hold on to its player base for a third person MOBA, and they don't really know what to do with the game, it's concerning because, I mean, this it's not even just like a game you could buy online and like you got a digital key. I mean, you could go into
Mm.
your GameStop or your, Target for a while, or Walmart or whatever. You could buy a physical copy of Paragon for the PS4, and it said on the back, in development, early access, whatever you want. But you could physically buy this game, and now on April 26th, that game will cease to exist. Like,
And that's,
yeah.
I mean, so I was thinking about it when I read the news, and I was like, if if a company decided to stop servicing a game like Unreal Tournament or Halo, or like, you at least you have a game you can still play. And maybe you can't play online because the servers get shut down, but you can play the campaign mode or you can play single player. I mean, I can still play Unreal Tournament 2004 on my
Exactly.
computer, no problem. But for a game like this, it's all online, right? As far as I know,
I mean, I
I
think
didn't get
there's
into
like
it
a very
much, but
limited bot mode, but from what I understand too, if the servers were down for like maintenance or for patches or anything else, you couldn't even connect. That there wouldn't even be a way of getting into like the like bot match offline mode. It always was connected there in order to kind of maintain like make sure people weren't cheating and like giving themselves like extra boosts and stuff like that offline. Everything had to be maintained by an online server, and when that goes offline, I mean the entire game is gone. So
yeah. So I mean, you paid for a game. I mean, okay, so I guess this kind of gets into my first point. Like, so people are paying to get into a beta, which I think you pointed out didn't used to happen. It used to be that you got in to help debug and test things, and now
correct.
people are paying for betas on good faith that it will become a game. And I mean, you have to take that risk that it's not going to be finished, but you really should expect it to. I think if you're paying money for it, and now they can't even like play a demo version of the game they paid for because it's going to be gone indefinitely.
Exactly. I mean, I will give Epic some credit, and I give this like the most backhanded credit possible. They did also announce that they're giving full refunds to all customers who request them for Paragon. Now,
Oh,
that part, initially I was kind of going, wow, that could be potentially a lot of money. Well, the amount of players that were actually going to probably follow through with getting a refund are probably a fraction of the full player base. And two, I believe that Epic and or Tencent are definitely making their money elsewhere internally. So they probably wouldn't even like say they gave 100% refunds to every single player. It probably
mm,
wouldn't even touch the amount of profit they've made off of some of their other like IPs or some of the other like the Unreal Engine like royalties, all that stuff. I mean,
oh,
again,
yeah.
it's good PR because again, as we pointed out, this is one of those games where there really is like when they close it down, there really is no redeeming like leftovers. I mean, you could like go in and look at the assets and like rip the character models out and like use them in other games if you really wanted to. Although I'm sure they technically legally can't do that, but like you
Yeah,
have those
Greg is
assets
not
on your
condoning
computer.
anything here, anybody.
No, definitely don't go and do anything crazy like that. There's plenty of third-party Android games that love to rip too many resources as is. We don't need to add that fuel to the fire with like a 30,000 polygon like texture model of some kind of robot from Paragon or whatever. But no, it's just it's troubling because with games, not even games, software in general, but especially games over the years, I remember getting into several betas. Like I'm a big MMO fan, pretty big MOBA fan, and I remember getting into the closed beta for like Dota 2, and I didn't have to pay for it. I got an invite for signing up on a list, and I was able to test out the game. I mean, it was pretty big by the time I got into it. I think I was a year and a half, 2 years into like active development, but it was still cool because like I didn't have to drop any money to get in. And after playing it and getting absolutely hooked on it, I actually did pay money for some of the in-game
Hmm.
cosmetics. But that's the difference. I didn't have to pay to like get in and try it and see if I liked it. I was just kind of given the chance to test it, make it better, and then choose to decide to support it or not. With the model that Paragon initially supported, they were going to be going free to play sometime this year. I mean, you could argue, I guess, they're going free to play forever, except you can't really play the game. So, I mean,
You don't have to pay anything, but you don't get to play anything either.
exactly. It's this new business model called, playing other games. It's a revolutionary tactic, and we'll see how it turns out for them in the long run, right?
Yeah. Hey, bold strategy, Cotton. That's the
Exactly.
obligatory quote I have to throw out there.
Exactly.
Um, so, I mean, you laid out quite a few reasons there as to why they would shut it down. You're not being able to maintain a player base and all that, like legitimate numbers reasons. Uh, but if they were, I mean, pretty recently talking about their plans for 2018, everybody loves conjecture. So, what do we think? What are the rumors as to what the timing is, what it is? Why are they shutting it down now?
Well, it's no big surprise that the biggest, hottest craze in online gaming right now is the battle royale slash player unknown battleground style slash H1Z1 slash every other type of game out there. everyone likes playing those, 100-man, fall into an arena, scavenge, scrounge up, tools and fight each other to the
Hunger
death.
Games style
Yeah,
games, yeah.
exactly. I guess what is it? I mean, technically, Battle Royale was the basis based off of the old Japanese movie, I guess. Either way,
Oh.
it's the hottest trend. Everyone wants a piece of that pie. It's kind of the 2017 or 2018 version of like the MOBA bubble from like 2-3 years back. Everyone wants to
Hmm.
get in on this. Player Unknown Battleground is still a huge game. I shouldn't even say was. Just recently came out of beta.
We're just so used to things flaming out that fast that,
Well, and
yeah.
and that's kind of the way the industry's going now too. It like if you don't get in on the hottest thing within the first couple of like months or 6 months of a trend, you're kind of
Hmm.
falling behind, and then you're almost doomed to repeat it. And for most companies that have to go through the due process of getting a budget together, getting a marketing plan, getting a team to develop something, a lot of these big budget companies can't like keep up with the like fast-paced development of smaller studios. I mean, again, looking at Paragon, Paragon came out several years after the MOBA market was already pretty saturated. I mean, League of Legends was, I think, first of the three, League, Smite, and Dota 2. They were the first to be officially released to public, followed by, I think, Smite, and then Dota 2 had kind of an open beta period for like 2 years, and then finally officially was released a year and a half ago. But still, and then Paragon came into the market in a closed beta, open beta situation, like after all these games were already out. And again, that's just probably because of the size of Epic Games, studios. They wanted to get a piece of this MOBA market,
Hmm.
and they had to, pool their resources. And then by the time they actually get an actualized vision of a game, that ship has already kind of started to sail.
Yeah.
So, going back to Paragon's closing, and the player unknown effect, I guess, going on in the industry now. Fortnite, one of Epic's other fairly, I guess, well, very big franchises now, initially was just a build some base, fight some zombie-like creatures, team up with your friends online, and just fight off hordes of monsters. That was the initial game mode, and now it's referred to as Save the World. A couple months back, they announced that they just were working on kind of secretly working on a multiplayer PvP mode that they wanted to unveil to everyone, and kind of caught a lot of the players off guard. And when they finally revealed it, it was a battle royale style mode, and
Hmm.
it was slated to be the first one to go to consoles. So not only could you play this on PC if you bought into it, but you could play it on PS4 and Xbox One, which was crazy. And it's like, okay, you can get into this. And then they dropped the big bombshell. They would be doing this like a week after they announced it. Meanwhile, PlayerUnknown is still in beta on PC. And then they also announced that this mode would be free to play for all players. And that
Huh.
kind of just, bombshell going off, nuclear fallout. Oh my gosh, put a lot of things into motion. I mean, the game the game was very polished. It was actually, for the longest time, it actually ran better than PlayerUnknown Battleground, despite being far less into development. And again, being free to play on consoles, anyone that didn't have a strong gaming PC that couldn't play PlayerUnknown initially, well, perfect. You got a PS4, you got an Xbox One, go download this game and play it right now. So they initially, unveiled some ways to spend real money to buy some cool cosmetics for your character, and I'm assuming they're making a lot of money off this. I mean, it's a very popular
Hmm.
game mode. They got like they were first to market on the consoles, and I'm sure they're making plenty off that. And then suddenly Paragon gets shut down a couple months later as they fail to kind of, they fail to keep players into the game. And again, a lot of this internal drama too. I didn't follow a lot of the development cycle for the past year very closely, but I was kind of catching up on it. There were some issues, I guess, with internal development. They didn't know really the direction to take Paragon to make it like have its own identity without being a carbon copy of Smite or a carbon copy of League of Legends, and it really couldn't find its own ground. And you'd think again, companies nowadays especially, there's swan songs of games that absolutely bombed, and then the company like pools the resources together, pulls back a bit, and then just relaunches it. Final Fantasy 14, Square Enix, when it launched, I want to say like in 2012 or something, it was probably one of the worst MMORPGs in existence. In fact, it was so bad, and I mean this sounds like hyperbole, but it is quite literal. It was so bad they actually like in game destroyed the world. It is like part of the in-game story, and then rebuilt the game from the ground up and re-released it, and then made that part of the game story. Like the world was completely destroyed and rebuilt because the game bombed so bad. And now the game is one of the biggest MMOs out there, and this is 4 or 5 years after the relaunch,
Well,
and it just
so I
baffles
guess
me.
sorry, you go ahead. I'll...
No, I feel like I've just been ranting. Obviously, this is a pretty pretty passionate thing about for myself. I mean, again, I'm no fool to spend money on some games that ideas I like. It's no different than going to Kickstarter, any other crowdfunding campaign. You see an idea you like, you throw your money behind it and hope it works out. But I
Well, is it...
was not expecting this from a big company like Epic. Again, with the money that they have from the Unreal Engine royalties and everything else, it just it it kind of blows my mind that they weren't hitting whatever quotas they were expecting, and instead of like trying to like find a way to make this work and recoup their losses, they're just kind of saying, let's just throw the gasoline on the fire and burn this down because we don't want to give it another shot, which very questionable business decision, because not only is it going to affect obviously the players of this, but even people who didn't play Paragon might hear about their practice and what they did with this game and might be a little more hesitant to support some of their future products going forward. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
time will tell, but
Well, okay. So, in your glorious rant there, because it is something we talked about before. I mean, not even in... So I'm gonna try to back this away from Epic specifically because it's something we've talked about before in the industry as a whole. A couple points that you made, um, like the gaming market is very saturated, and there's a lot of competition to get people to come and play it. And like, it's not like it used to be where there was like a blockbuster game every few months. Now it's like a kind of constant cycle as to the latest and greatest. And there was the MOBA craze, and now it's the battle royale style game, the huge player kind of thing. Um, how how do I phrase this well? How do we... Okay, I'll couch it like this. So you said you are in favor of supporting games on Kickstarter, giving them money. To me, there's a contract there, and you're saying like, I know this is kind of a risk, but I like what these people are trying to accomplish.
correct. And that's kind of what it is. I mean, again, back in the day, everyone would talk about like, oh, I wish they would make a game that had, Mario, but there were like new levels and this and this. And as a as a kid growing up, I mean, unless you wanted to go and make your own tools with some rudimentary things on a computer, you couldn't do that. Now, obviously, as like that age group gets older and has expendable income, now you could, I mean, in theory, you can back ideas you like to see them come to life. And again, there's obviously risk in any kind of investment in any any part of the world, any kind of business out there. But it just feels like a lot of the video game industry is still kind of lagging behind because there really aren't many consequences. Again, if Epic can get away with shutting down a game that people paid for, and again, they're offering refunds, but it's the principle behind it. So all the progress people have put into this game, all the time and investment. I mean, there's probably
Oh
players out
yeah.
there putting thousands of hours into this game, and it's
Well,
going to be
people who
completely
got in
wiped.
early
You know?
and rode with it all this time, waiting for when it finally became a game because they loved it so much, and now them waiting for it to go like public and be like a... wait. I'd have to think after the first year or so of playing like pretty polished betas,
Hmm.
you might start to realize like, well, maybe it's not going to have a big launch day because it's already been out for so long. But if you've been waiting for it all that time and then, oh, they're shutting down... I mean, I guess if you have been with it all that time, you got your enjoyment out of it. But at the same time, if you were waiting to share it with your friends, like they were all waiting until it went full release so you can play with them, and now it's gone, that's kind of a bummer. But so like, if we're supposed to be committed to these games, either by paying to get into a beta or paying to get into a Kickstarter, it, to me, and this is more of a what's I'm looking for, hypothetical, um, or rhetorical question almost, but do the companies owe us anything in terms of committing to free to play games? Because there's not the normal um, commitment on their part that they'll stick with a game long enough to recoup their costs to make it, typically because there's a big launch day, they have to sell so many copies. They'll support it long enough to kind of get that economy going. With a free to play game, if it doesn't get the money that they're looking for right away, there's really not that commitment for them to keep on going because they're not going to get it from game sales, but from in-game purchases, right?
Correct. And I guess that's a lot of it too. The dangers of buying an early access game, or pre-order or Kickstarter, however you want to go about it. And then the game, like I said, Paragon was supposed to launch in 2018 as being a free-to-play game where you could, kind of a League of Legends style model where you could buy, you'll have a small base pool of heroes that rotate, and then every couple, weeks you can buy a new hero that comes out, or you can buy your favorite hero and master that one, and or you can buy a new skin or cosmetics for your other heroes. And again, it's just kind of an odd predicament to be in because the game wasn't even given a chance to like be out to the public and try it and see if the game could pick up speed. I guess it almost feels like it must have been some kind of internal turmoil because they didn't even give it a chance to try to like recoup. Like I said, most games would try to recoup their losses, but Paragon was never even given that chance. It just kind of was
And
told, nope, something about this is not working out for us, and we are no longer going to be supporting this game any further.
well, and maybe it's, I mean, maybe it's like you said, when you were talking about the striking while the iron's hot. And if they decided, hey, the MOBA thing's already kind of passed, there's nothing new under the sun, but we got in early enough with, Fortnite that we can make a real run at this craze, and they just want to commit to that now. Um, Maybe it's not like you have to choose one of your children to die, but you see a child that's going to be the valedictorian, and maybe you spend more money on that one.
Yeah, I
As
mean that.
terrible as it sounds.
No, I mean that's a very good
I don't have
analogy,
children,
dark
so
analogy, but very good one nonetheless. Because I mean,
yes.
I think that's a lot of it. At the end of the day, and I think this is something a lot of the gaming community as a whole tends to struggle with. And again, not to say that I don't, but I can see kind of both sides of it. At the end of the day, a video game companies are businesses. Their whole
Hmm.
point, as any other business, well, should be, is to make profit and to increase sales and make their company prosperous so they can continue on developing money. Yay capitalism, all that good stuff. But at the same time, like you have to wonder where do you draw the line? Where does a passion project and where does like the dream of having a great product get outweighed by the cost of you want to make sure that you get the bottom line up and you get your return on investment and your investors get the more dividends paid out at the end of the quarter. It's like and that's where it kind of comes down to. I mean, a lot of people on the Paragon subreddit are claiming, oh, Epic's just milking the cash cow of the battle royale game. See what'll happen when this goes the way of the MOBAs, and the core people are still there, but then the flavor of the month players move on to the next big thing. And I think they're aware of that. I don't know if they're really trying to make a lasting thing. At the end of the day, they're just trying to make the most money, and they're trying to use the resources to most effectively get it back. For me, as a avid game fan and player of many video games, the only thing it makes me do is it kind of makes me pause now when I think about Epic. I mean, back in the day of Jazz, Jackrabbit, Unreal Tournament, so many great memories of games. Even Gears of War, the original couple, absolutely
Oh yeah.
great. And now it's going to be kind of tarnished with this idea that, well, Epic is definitely not the same company that it was, 20 years ago. And I guess as it should be, no company is going to be the same as it was 20 years ago. Everything has to keep developing and evolving and changing. But it just makes me a little concerned for the future of the gaming industry because, I mean, again, kind of going to the next topic, I mean, looking at what works with free-to-play games and, you know, how do you justify like making money back on a game that's trying to pull all of your time into it. I mean, there are so many multiplayer games out there on mobile phones, Steam, PC, other sources, PS4. I mean, there are so many multiplayer games, but the finite resource here, I mean, not even less than time is people. I mean, there are
Hmm.
so many games out there, and they all demand that you spend all your time leveling up stats and getting better and getting better skills at these online games. But if there's no players to play them, in the case of like Paragon, the game won't exist. I mean, there's been so many games in the past. 2017, there were so many games that came out to like tepid, if not like no fanfare, and then flopped. I mean, the tie into Epic here too. Cliff Bleszinski, the famous developer, worked on Unreal Tournament. I think he directed it or produced. I think Gears of War. It really got him, a lot of fame. Left Epic years back, made his own studio, and launched Lawbreakers this past fall. I want to say it was September or October or maybe even August. An online-only multiplayer shooter with gravity-defying mechanics, and it was old school. You wouldn't pay to win your way through this. Very much a kind of a rebellious, like, buckle up, guys. You got to have skill to win at this game. And it was going to be launching on PS4 and Steam, initially free to play. Well, the developer, I think the producer studio, or the publisher, that's what it is. The publisher, I don't remember who it is off the top of my head. They changed their mind at the last minute and decided that they would, they didn't like the free to play model, so they were just gonna like make it a $30 flat, like get in the door, and you don't have to buy anything else. The game launched on Steam and PS4, and within the first week, I think it topped out on Steam with like 1,000 players. And I want to say now, currently, if you look at it, there is probably like 25 players on at any given day, and the game's not even half a year old. And again, you could argue it was marketing, this and that, but at the same time, what also launched right around this time? PlayerUnknown Battleground. Overwatch was huge. I mean, Overwatch is still huge. There's so many games out there now that if you want to play them online, you have to kind of just pick and choose. You can't play all of them. There's not enough time in the day. And if all your friends aren't playing the same game, I mean, why bother? So now it's kind of, it feels like the industry is almost hopping from game to game. The next big craze comes out, and then people hop to that. Destiny 2 came out with very little well, I shouldn't say very little, big fanfare, but very little follow through. I mean, a lot of people played it for the first month, didn't like what they had, and then dropped it, and now have moved on since to 3 other games since then. It's like it's crazy to see how fast the industry is moving now.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, again, my soapbox. I'll officially step off the soapbox now. It's just,
step down.
I don't know. It's one of those sad things to see. And again, maybe it speaks to me personally because it's one of those I invested in the game a while back, and then I guess that's the best way to put it. I invested in it. I didn't necessarily like the way the game launched, but I liked the way it was in the middle, and I was excited to see how it was going to develop as time went on. As I played other games, I could kind of pop back and check on it and be, oh, okay, cool. The game's they're working on this. They added like 10 new heroes. Cool. This is looking great. And now that plug has been pulled before it had even a chance to get out there.
I get it. So I guess I'm trying to keep us in under half an hour because attention spans are short these days.
That is true.
But I thought we should have our closing statements. And as we were talking, so my closing statement is this: like, Epic, as you said, is allowed to do whatever they want. They're a business. They need to keep the doors open. I don't know if it's fair to say they owe us a release or they owe us so many years of support for it. But as we were talking, I thought about a similar example that was handled very differently. A game that was people were excited about it, but they canceled it. And that was when Blizzard was making Ghost. Is a game that I was very excited about. They canceled it because for whatever reason, they didn't like the fit. They didn't see it going well. They didn't like it. And they canceled it. And I think that people were disappointed, but people wouldn't be upset about that because they never got a chance to play it, or they certainly didn't pay money to play it, or to buy a beta copy of it, as far as I know.
Correct.
I don't think, yeah. Now, Paragon, Epic had this game that they got people invested in it, playing it, made it, put resources into it and let them play it all the time. It wasn't just like there was beta windows to practice it or to get into it. And then they axed it without ever actually releasing it. And it's certainly within their right to do it. They're trying to make money just like everybody else. But I think it creates kind of a weird, not contract, but I'll use that word for now, where they're asking you to put your time into playing a game that's not ready yet and not polished. And then at any time they can just, pull the plug on it. And, hopefully you got your enjoyments out of it. And if you follow through on getting your money back, it's, that's a pretty good deal. You can go buy yourself an Unreal Tournament game. It's just a very interesting situation that I'm curious to see what kind of precedent it sets.
Exactly.
Did you have any other closing remarks before we let these fine people go?
I guess the only thing I would say is just to be cautious with your money. Again, any kind of early access, Kickstarter, any of those platforms we talked about. You're allowed to buy into the dream, and you hope that the dream will come true. but there's absolutely no guarantees, and until people either start, I guess, putting more like legal contracts behind it, or until people get a little more outraged about, I mean, we could go on in an entirely different podcast about this, about all the Kickstarter games that have up and just vanished. I mean, and we're not even talking ones that came out and like had anything playable. It was a cool concept. They had some cool footage. People paid for it. They made their funding, and then 4 years later, there's absolutely nothing to be shown for it, and the developers are nowhere to be heard. I mean, it's as the gaming industry continues to grow, obviously it's going to go through these growing pains as well. But people need to remember that, again, you can vote and speak with your wallet. If you don't like the practices these companies are doing or not doing, don't give them your money. Even if they come out and say, "Oh, we've learned so much and we're offering this and this," remember that the next time when they're offering the new game,
Yeah. I decided, from this moment on, we're going to have, I don't know if it's going to be Jake and Greg's or just Greg's cynical soapbox,
There you go.
where you hand us sage advice, such as be careful where you spend your money. Don't spend it all in one place.
Hey, true advice right there.
If you don't like what a business is doing, by God, boycott.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
I mean, again,
or at least don't buy the video games.
Well, exactly. I mean, hopefully these aren't like earth-shattering revelations. I'm honestly not expecting to be like making people go, "My goodness, I never thought of it that way." I mean, I'm really hoping people are aware of these practices, but it's like sometimes it's just worth saying it. I mean, in this day and age with how easy it is to drop 5, 10, 15, 500, $1,000 online without even batting an eye at something. Just again, think of where your money's going.
And I guess that's kind of what I was driving at with it. I didn't want to use the word contract because to me, if you're not willing to take the risk that this beta game never gets released, you shouldn't pay for the beta. Like it might suck to, you're interested in this game, but you just can't play the beta because you don't want to pay to get in. If it's something that you're passionate enough about, if there's a project you're really interested in and you want to put your money there, that's fine. But I don't know how justified any the word, any like resentment is, because they didn't say they were for sure going to ever release a game. I mean, obviously it's the implication, but yeah, I mean, how much outrage is justified if they didn't sign a contract with you saying if we don't release this, you get your money back?
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, a fool and his money are what easily or quickly departed or quickly separated. Or again, more sage half truths and half correct statements from me. But
Greg's Fortune Cookie Corner,
like budget
sponsored by Greg's Cynic Soapbox.
I like it. I have the platform of cynicism. Just all these products to try to talk about things that I understand partial truths about. I enjoy it. I think that'll be my next venture too. Hey, you know what? If you want, you can spend $30 on my platform, and one day you might actually get a finished product. Sounds like a good idea, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And I will look forward to it every day.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm pretty sure we're pushing the half-hour mark if we haven't gone over already.
We're pushing it, but that's all right.
So we should wrap this up. I want to thank everybody for listening. On behalf of Greg, I am Jake. Thank you for listening to Game Domain's DomainCast, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
See you next time.